Good evening and welcome to the Returned Homestead. My name is Mike and my wife Marty and I homestead 50 acres in southeastern Kentucky. This afternoon we're going to need to spend some time in the garden. The harvest is still coming in. Green beans still need to be picked. There's a lot of those, and we need to put some attention on the tomatoes. We have quite a few ripe tomatoes on the vine, so we're going to get busy picking the green beans, tying up the tomatoes, and getting those ripe ones off of the vine.
To die back though.
Yeah, we're finally starting to lose our green beans. They've about played out. You can see the bottoms of the plants are all yellowing, turning brown. The Japanese beetles have been eating on the leaves, so they're starting to look really worn. But we do still have green beans on the vine. So there's still harvesting to do up in here. We're gonna give ourselves a little bit of a relaxing treat and just pick green beans and tomatoes this evening. Oh, and maybe some peppers. And I think some squash as well. So we got a little bit of work yet to do today. It hasn't been a day of rest around here. We have already finished the level 4 sanding in the bedroom and then prepped that room for paint, painted the walls. And then I came out and cut the grass. Now it's time for the fun part of the labor that's ahead of us, and that's seeing the produce coming in. So I'm gonna grab my bucket, get busy helping Marty out. We thought we were gonna get a really great harvest off of this elderberry this year, but something has come and broken off several of the tips. We do still have some berries that are starting to grow out. And this elderberry still has some flowers on it, but the berries are already starting to produce. And it looks like we do have a little bit of a fungus going on in our tomatoes, but we've got ripe tomatoes on the vine. So we're gonna need to come in here and clean off a lot of these bottom branches again. Get everything tied up. And then we'll also harvest any tomatoes that have got some color on them. A lot of work to do up here on the tomatoes yet this evening.
They are getting blight.
Marty's telling me she thinks that's blight. I can't disagree with her. So it looks like the blight has already set in on our tomatoes this year.
I'm gonna go get some twine.
I've got some. We haven't spent as much time out here with the tomatoes as we would definitely like to have, but we've got a remodel going on.
Blight, man.
Blight is really bad. Let's see if we can't clean these things up a little bit.
That's what I should put in the bucket because they need to be carried away from the plant,
Yeah.
even though it's soil borne.
Once the blight starts, it'll just keep creeping up the plant, eventually killing everything off.
Here, I'll let you take these tomatoes and I'll come through and start clipping blight.
All right. Some decent looking tomatoes. You don't want to expect that your homegrown tomatoes are going to look like what you buy in the grocery store. They're going to be a little irregular. You're going to have odd sizes and shapes. There's going to be some bad spots on them. They're still edible. I mean, obviously you don't want to eat anything that looks or feels rotten. Especially if you're making a tomato sauce or a tomato powder, which is what we plan to do with a large portion of this. Save the nicer, cleaner ones for your salad. Use the ones that aren't so perfect to do other things like making sauce. It only takes a little effort to clean these things up too. I try to keep all of these branches and leaves that are obviously not doing well collected in a bucket so we can get them away from the rest of the tomatoes.
Well, ideally, we would be cleaning our shears off with alcohol between cuts.
Yeah. I mean, that is the recommendation. We'd be out here for a couple of days. Love to have that kind of time to spend on the tomatoes, we just don't. When it comes to your food production, there's an old adage in engineering: don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Maybe you can't spend enough time on your plants to have perfect, well-groomed plants. But if they can produce some food for you, they're worth putting in the ground.
And because of the blight, we'll not be able to grow tomatoes here next year.
I think we moved them down where the beans were.
Yep.
Beans should have done a good job of fixing some nitrogen in the soil for us. Should make that ground really good for tomatoes.
Gorgeous tomatoes, man. Blight or no
There are
blight.
some beautiful tomatoes in here.
I see a lot of sauce coming up
I mean, ideally you want to get out here and do this trim up work
daily.
every other day at the outside. And you guys were with us last time we did this. It's been a couple of weeks.
Well, we even had problem with blight from time to time in the desert.
Yeah.
Not like we got it here.
If things got wet and stayed wet for a while, I'm trying to weave these tomatoes back through the fencing as well, let them hold themselves up wherever possible. A few people have commented about that on our video about putting up this tomato trellis. There are definitely better products than this 2x4 fencing. We agree 100%. This is what we had the budget for this year and the time for. Maybe next year we'll look at laying in some cattle panels. Those are a lot more
stable.
Nice big holes in that. It leaves you a big gap to stick your hand through to be able to pick both sides of the trellis. Definitely a much better option. But the reality is any option you choose is better than no option at all. And in the end, it's about producing some food, not following the best possible practices necessarily. You do it your way.
You do you.
You do you. Just get her done. And this is really kind of a treat for Marty and I to get to come and spend this extra time in the day out here in the garden.
After working in an office most of your life, yeah.
Yeah. Let's face it, you spend 40 hours a week sitting underneath fluorescent lights at a desk that's too small, all cramped up.
Just think how bad the blight would be if we hadn't trimmed these up.
Yeah, if we hadn't done the work we've done on them so far, we probably would have lost these already. Another thing I'm noticing about this 2x4 fencing, where the tomatoes rub on it, the tomatoes don't seem to like the metal itself. So there's a discolored area on the stem anywhere that the tomato is rubbing against the fencing. I'm not sure that's detrimental to tomato production, just an observation of the health of the plant.
Every time I see a thick tomato skin or stem, I think it's a green bean because I've picked so many. I do.
Green beans on the brain there.
Right? I've snapped a lot of green beans this year. We won't want for any.
No, we've got enough green beans to last us this year and probably into the next.
I don't know.
You know, Marty's not joking. She spends probably a couple hours every night or during the day snapping green beans.
See, now the best way to do it is with homemade salsa. So that's
Yeah,
what
you
these
do.
tomatoes do.
Green beans and salsa. I like it. Any of you tomato aficionados out there who are watching what we're doing and you're noting that we're cutting branches off well above where the tomatoes are growing, we're trying to stop the blight from spreading too fast. So we're having to take branches we typically wouldn't want to take.
I haven't seen one of those. I think it's the terracottas. I'm not sure.
Wow, yeah, that one's
If
all
anybody has grown
jacked up.
terracottas and they've noticed they cap face really easy, let me know.
Whoops.
Whoops.
Scaring the chickens.
They're laughing too.
Our roosters have a good sense of humor. Well, it's an interesting perspective. People look at gardeners like us and they say, well, where do you find time for other things? And it's really the other things that you make time for that prevent you from having time for gardening, not the other way around.
No, I'd much rather be out in the garden.
Yeah, this is a great way to spend an evening, really.
It's toasty, it's hot, but
That's just a stump of a plant. I'm gonna pull those tomatoes. There's nothing there. Not even any leaves left on it.
New roof.
Yeah, it's got to be one of our new ones. Sounding a little pathetic there.
He's just learning to crow.
Well, the sun's starting to go down, and I need to break off from dealing with the tomatoes to go take care of the animals. The goats are complaining loudly. The chickens also need to be fed. We do appreciate you joining us here on the Return Homestead today. We've still got quite a bit of picking to do. We've got squash that need to be harvested. Y'all, now that is a squash right there. Got quite a few more on the vine. There's another one down here that we need to harvest. You can see the crazy shapes these sometimes get bent into. Looks like we have 3 of them that need to be harvested right now. I'm going to go ahead and get those things collected. This is why we like growing these particular squash. There's some really fine eating right there. And Marty's going to continue with the tomatoes. I'll get the animals fed, come back and rejoin her. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. Hit that like button while you're in there, and we'll see you next time.